Good, you're all set.
Good evening. I'm going to call the Building and Facilities Construction Committee meeting to order for Wednesday, October 21st, 2020 at 7:05. Present is Mike Fitzpatrick, Linda Brown, Shirley Mazinski, and remote Ginger Howe. Just to remind,
You want to note that we also have members from,
and, well, we also will have members of the library committee remotely. I don't see anyone here, but we'll check and let you know if there is.
And Bill Cundiff.
And Bill Cundiff, our town engineer.
Well, Don Fontaine's online.
Yeah, from the library.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome, Dawn. So for,
I muted because of the dog.
Oh,
okay. So first item is reorganization, which we've been kind of putting off because Sean wasn't able to come. So I'm asking you, what is your wish at this point?
prior to the last meeting, I did ask Sean if he was okay if you reorganized in his absence, and he was fine with that. So
Okay.
if you want to, you can proceed with that.
What is the wish?
Did he mention if he wanted to still remain chair, or did
He
you
did
ask?
not. He did not indicate that.
Did he say he didn't want to remain chair?
He did not indicate either way.
Okay. Well, it seems like Shirley is the only person that's always here. And not to, say anything bad about Sean, but he's so busy that I'm wondering if he really does want to continue. I wish we had asked him.
Yeah, me too.
You want to wait one more meeting?
What's your,
Excuse me?
Do you want to wait one more meeting?
Yes, and then if for some reason he can't make it, I think it would be good to ask him specifically how he feels about it.
okay,
I'd be happy to ask him.
Yeah,
I was under the impression he was going to be here tonight, so.
yeah.
and Mike was.
he had told me that he was going to come tonight, so something had to
Yeah.
come up that he wasn't able to make it.
Okay, so the wish is you want to hold off one more meeting?
Yeah, one more.
Yes,
one more
and
meeting.
maybe have Bill
Yeah,
contact him, see
Yeah.
if he wants to.
I think it's only fair.
Sure. Okay. Oh, somebody's coming in the door?
Steve.
Oh, okay. All right, library is the second item on the agenda. And Bill?
So I think at the last meeting, the committee asked me to send an invitation to the library folks and ask them if they wanted to give us an update on where they're at and give us some parameters about what their plan is, I guess.
Yeah, thought process.
So as far, I'm not used to this.
It's okay. Just let me indicate that Sean, I'm sorry,
Dawn?
Dawn is representing the library, I gather, and she is remote, so we'll hear from Dawn Fontaine. Go ahead, Dawn. Welcome.
So there should have been other members of the library trustees here. And it looks like Justin Smith, the librarian, is trying to dial in. We got your message, Bill, about using Google Chrome, so I'm not sure if that's the issue or something else, but I will start, and then hopefully Justin will be there eventually, because he has a little bit more knowledge of this than me. So we did watch your meeting from last week, or I did anyway, and that was pretty accurate what you had said. It was about a year ago that we met. The library trustees met right after the first building subcommittee for the building and facilities with the library. And basically what it comes down to is a little bit of a holding pattern. Not sure, the library trustees are a little bit hesitant to give funds towards for accurate architectural plans without knowing how much the entire project would cost and outlay money for plans that become too expensive or aren't realistic or that sort of a thing. So what we basically did is went with the best estimate that we could get of what we think it will be and fundraising towards that effect. Now, COVID has put a damper on fundraising activities, but that still is the plan at the moment. The library trustees did not feel comfortable enough going forward with any money without knowing how much the project would cost. And Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not able to talk with an architect to get a better estimate of what a project would cost because that compromises them when we go to the request for proposal process.
No, that's not necessarily true. You could certainly have an independent architect help you out at this stage. But what would happen is, I did forward a copy of a chart for designer services to Justin, and I also included it in the packet I handed out tonight. And basically, that goes over some guidelines and parameters on the process that should be followed when you go through designer selection. You have to hire a designer under state law if the project, the estimated design fee is, the estimated construction cost is over $300,000.
Okay, which we all think it's going to be.
That's correct. And based upon everything that Justin has conveyed since a month ago, it sounds like you're going to be at least double, close to double that, maybe not quite, that 300,000. So there's a pretty good factor of safety in there that I think everybody agrees you'll probably be triggering that statute that requires a designer selection process. So in addition to the state law, we also have our local selectmen have some designer selection guidelines that they have adopted that need to also be followed. So, and that's part of the role of this committee, Dawn, is to give you some assistance in that process. And so usually the way it works is, on other projects, it's worked this way. You would have a scope of work that you want to get done. We would help you prepare an RFP for designers. We would be happy to host the process for interviewing and selecting designers, as we've done in the past. And certainly with the trustees participating as well. And basically, at the outcome of that, we come up with a recommendation that we give to the selectmen, and they'll select the designer formally. So that's it in a nutshell for a process. So in terms of scoping it out, certainly you could use some nominal funds to work with an architect to scope out the work and the project. When I say that, I mean the scope for the architect. The architect will create the bid documents. So when I say scope it out, you could certainly work with an architect to develop the scope for the architectural services, what they think the design fee is. Of course, you'll have to have some idea of the scope of work for the project.
Well, the scope of work is not the problem. I think, there were rough sketches that were done that all of the trustees were very happy with. There's 4 parts to it, including an exterior entrance that's accessible, which includes an elevator, and then handicap bathrooms. There's some, discussion about where those could land, but that's, and then, anything that we might need to do to the parking area so that it would take care of what we needed to do. And the trustees are all on board with that. It's kind of hard to speak for everybody when it's just one person.
Right.
Because I can't say for sure, I guess we'll have to do it. We do have a meeting next week, I believe. So I can bring this up at our next meeting and see what we can do about that. It makes sense to me that we would go forward with that process if it looks like we're going to need to use a designer in any case, but we're talking about a couple things, right? Like a designer meeting an architect who would put together initial plans, and then there's a later set of plans. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, again, now you're getting into developing the scope, and I think if you're planning on having an architect assist you with preparing the scope of services for the architect, then I think that's a good idea that we can take and insert in a set of requests for proposals from architects, so that everyone will bid on apples and apples, and it will be thorough and complete. I would not want to miss something from an engineer's perspective that an architect might be aware of that I'm not aware of, particularly with regard to ADA accessibility, which I am not an expert on.
Yeah, in an older building, I don't know if there's
That's right.
or certain things
Right.
related to the building.
So certainly, I think it's advisable to spend a few $1,000s and have someone assist you in preparing a scope of work for the competitive bid documents for architects. And that you could just hire someone using good business practices.
So again, this is the architect himself who would be working with, who would be talking to about the scope of work.
The scope of work for the architects, correct.
Okay.
You know what you want for a project, you can tell him that, or her, and they will develop the scope of work for the architectural services.
Okay. And we don't need to put that out to bid, correct? We can just contact one or two?
You would use what's called good business practices, and, you could solicit bids, you could have them informally solicited, you could use someone that's familiar with the site and the project, use good business practices, and that should be sufficient. I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Yeah, we do, sure. We do have, I think, 2, maybe 3 architects that were recommended by various people in town that we were looking to, that, sounded knowledgeable and the kind of people that we could use.
The only thing I would advise is that you want someone that's familiar with municipal projects and municipal procurement requirements, because it's a whole different thing than for architects that don't do this kind of work.
Yeah, that is. Okay.
So, Dawn, you have any more questions for Bill, or?
I guess the only other question is about, about putting something up. I don't know if we need the 5 or so who are on the committee, if it's just Bill talking to Justin, or something in between.
Well, the trustees certainly drive this show.
Right.
We do not. We provide input and guidance and recommendations. So, I'm certainly happy to help Justin and the trustees on, preparing something to acquire this preliminary architect, and then go from there.
Bill, let me throw this out. Maybe we should do the reverse and have you stop in at the library trustees meeting on the 27th. Is that 4 p.m. remote, just remote?
Okay.
That's a
I'm
possibility.
sorry, I gave up on trying to log in, so I'm about called in.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Justin.
What did I miss? I'm terribly sorry.
Okay, Bill, do you want to summarize, or do you want me to?
So basically, Justin, Dawn gave us an overview. We think everyone agrees that the estimated project cost is over $300,000. Therefore, a designer selection process is required for both state law and local designer selection procedures that were adopted by the selectmen. And therefore, the first step, I think, and it sounds like Dawn agrees, it is to get an architect to help you prepare the scope of work for the designer so that we can put an RFP document out to get designers on board.
So Justin, and they were talking like a few thousand, maybe not like do the whole set of plans. That's, in the tens of thousands. So I suggested that we bring that to the trustees next week and maybe even have Bill come in for a little bit of that if he's free, like the reverse of what we're doing here. And that would, and so Bill, with that scope of work, does that assign any figures to anything or that?
He would come up with an estimated fee for the entire project as part of his scope. And, and again, we all might be missing something that's required. Justin, one of the things we talked about was we want to make sure that the architect that is hired knows municipal projects and knows municipal procurement requirements or state procurement requirements. Because I think you could get led down the wrong path if you work with someone that doesn't do that kind of work.
Yes, the trustee, and I'm assuming Don, you're on, and Danielle.
Danielle didn't make it, I'm not sure why.
Oh, well, anyway, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, the trustees basically put this in the lap of the building and facilities subcommittee. The subcommittee, which is Dawn, Kate, yourself, and Mike Fitzpatrick. So starting out with the scope, basically they wanted to kind of, just take a step back, make sure that we had, enough capital laid back to ensure we had a reasonable shot of pushing this through before beginning any of these processes, which is, like that, it's not, based on watching the last email, it sounded like some people thought that we were kind of keeping people out of the loop. And that's not been anybody's, that's not been our intention. It's just we haven't actually been doing anything other than fundraising. Because we wanted to just kind of take a step back and fundraise, try to get something to put behind the punch before trying to punch through and, not end up where we've ended up in the past. And then once we do start pulling these figures, it would be under the very, very close guidance of you and the BSCC and my working with Dawn and Kate with that subcommittee. Is that not right?
So, Bill, do you have anything to say? And we're going to move on here.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with who drives the cart as long as everyone agrees. Normally, I believe our role, when I say the subcommittee,
Sure.
our role was to provide some guidance to the trustees in a more efficient and quick way than, our monthly VFCC meetings. So I'm not sure if we're geared up to, define a scope of work, and I don't think that's what our goal was originally.
No.
So, Mike Fitzpatrick, you have questions or comments? Go ahead.
If I understood what Justin said, is the trustees want to put it into the subcommittee. It may be beneficial to the library and this committee if we met again and then amongst our little subcommittee, fully explain what they need to do so it's 100% clear. And what, if I'm incorrect, correct me, but I think what you explained was the initial thing is just define what the job is, so then they can get a guesstimate from this preliminary architect to define a scope to put out. So I think it might be beneficial if we just met at least one time, so we can hash through that stuff in the subcommittee. Justin comes and actively part of it. It may free up this committee, and then we can help them get a handle on that.
Any,
So,
go ahead.
just-
Dawn?
What was pretty clear in the trustees meeting is we wanted to have a figure to work with. And also that people were reluctant to put out a lot of money towards a set of plans that may not be usable in the long run. So I think this sort of sounds like it maybe ticks off those boxes. We're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars, but we're talking about getting a scope and getting a price, and then knowing what we're aiming for.
Mike, comment? You-
No, I think she was talking to Justin to see if he had a response to that, see if
Okay.
he was in agreement with that.
Okay,
But I think it may be helpful. I'm willing to participate in that, I'm assuming that Bill would be too.
Yep.
It would just make it easier and help Dawn and Kate with some clarity as to how they can go back and present this to the committee. But you have to get a starting point, and this is probably the best way for you to do it.
okay. Linda, do you have any comments, questions?
Nope.
Ginger?
No, I just think that Mike and Bill are right. We're still not at the beginning. We need to figure out exactly what needs to begin to do to start with, and that's where we're at.
Okay. So, Bill, we can see about setting up a meeting, whether it be
Well, that would
remote.
be.
Up
Dawn,
to
are you the
them.
Chairperson of that subcommittee?
We don't really have a chairperson because it's only 5 of us, or 4 of us. It was really not even Justin initially, because that was when he was on leave.
Well, it'd probably be a good idea to establish that, but somebody needs to do that to get these meetings in a progression here, because I've been frustrated for a year, because it was like, I even brought it up at the last meeting, if we're not gonna meet, I really don't like to be associated with a committee that's not even doing anything. So, because I don't wanna just have my name out there for no other reason but to be on a committee. I'd rather be. that.
I'm sorry. I agree, Mike. You need structure.
Yeah. Okay, Ginger.
So,
Yep.
How
do you want to go, Kate?
Once we have this scope, initial estimate,
Yeah.
we would like to dissolve the committee until such a time as we have the funding to move forward to the next step, because then it might be a while before we do.
No, I think what would be the most productive way to go about that is just, we should schedule another meeting, sit down and talk about it, and then we can make that decision at that point. I don't think it's fair to make that decision now without even meeting and discussing where we're at with that. So I don't know if Dawn,
I'm just trying to imagine where it would go.
well, you're gonna imagine forever if you never meet. So I'm willing to put the time into it, Justin, if you're willing to do that. If we just meet one more time and figure it out. If you don't want to continue on, then just make that clear, and I'll be willing to stop.
I mean, Shirley Mazinski speaking. I agree with Mike, because you've already had time, you've already met at least maybe
No, one time.
one time, and then you came up with sort of an estimate, and you started to fundraise, and if you want to keep the momentum going, at least I think it would be fair to the people, the subcommittee, to have the library trustees meet with the subcommittee or whatever and see what's the best thing to do at this point. Because otherwise, you're wasting time and energy already. Any thoughts?
Okay, well, let's do it. I mean, I don't think we're wasting time necessarily, because we've doubled the amount of money we have in our we are successfully fundraising.
Absolutely, but Justin, the point is we met one time. Within 20 minutes of that meeting, you had your trustees meeting. We never had another meeting or any feedback back to the members that you have on this side. So out of fairness, there should have been at least a follow-up meeting just to bring us up to speed as to where your head's at. If you're doing fundraising and everything's put on hold until you reach a certain number, that's perfectly fine. But nobody knows what's going on. So you know what's going on. I don't. I don't know.
I emailed. It made it pretty clear, I thought, in emails I sent to Bill. But I mean, again, like it wasn't my intent to leave anybody out in the dark. But I'm all for having another meeting. I just thought that we were all on the same page because we would have electronic correspondence. But I guess the message didn't get through.
No, Justin, I do share the emails with the committee.
Yep.
So,
Why don't we schedule a meeting?
Dawn, Justin, how about you talk to your committee and get back to Bill and let us know, the subcommittee at least, when you want to meet, or make arrangements with them, and then move on, and at least have some idea, you're fundraising and you doubled your money, but that's another part of it. This is the project itself, so you kind of have an idea of where you're going, and do you need to raise more money? Then you'll know. Is that agreeable?
Sure.
So you'll get back to Bill, and he can let Mike know, and,
I'll send a group email.
okay.
The only day that I have trouble with is Wednesdays. All my meetings fall on Wednesdays.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, schedules are pretty free these days. I'm just debating whether we're trying to do this before the 27th, or it doesn't really, that's not an issue. The 27th is the next library trustees meeting of November.
you can do it before or after that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just as long as you have a clear understanding where you want to go, I'm more than happy to help you try to get there.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, we'll see if we can get it done before then. I'll send an email in a moment.
Okay, Ginger, you have any comments or anything you'd like to add?
No, I just totally agree with you. You can't raise money when you don't know how much the project is going to cost.
Well, they have a guesstimate on it, and
We need to,
Yep.
their efforts are definitely going in the right direction. It's just trying to.
Absolutely, but they still need they need the bones.
yes. Okay. Anything else? Dawn? Justin? Okay, well, thank you for coming in remotely, and we'll hear from you at another time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okey-dokey. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Okay. Item 3, green energy. Bill,
Green energy.
where
So-
are we?
We actually should be closed out with our grant funds, however, we've got one project, the municipal building weatherization. Nothing's changed since our last meeting. ECI, you might recall, we pulled out the gym windows out of that weatherization scope. So they've been working with National Grid's rebate, and that's kind of where we're hung up. You got to get a rebate from National Grid before the state can give their blessing on proceeding with the So that's kind of where that's at. The other 2 projects have been completed, that's the only one that's kind of lingering. We did get an extension from the state, so, but we would still want to be diligent. So as a matter of fact, I sent out a couple emails today to the state, to ECI, trying to move them along.
Okay. Anyone? Questions for Bill?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Item 4, Police Department windows,
Yeah, that made it on the agenda by mistake. We're done with that.
done. Okay. All right. Okay, item 5, Municipal Backup Generator,
Okay, that,
status update.
that status has not changed. The administrator, and I can either keep it on the agenda or I could put it back when things kick up. He's trying to find an alternate source of funding to supplement what we have appropriated, because the scope of the project is a little different than what they originally anticipated. So, for example, they were going to do a one-to-one replacement of the police generator.
Right.
Now they want to have something a little more robust and significant for the entire building, now that this building is the emergency operations center, for example.
Yep.
So they did try to get a grant from the Commonwealth Cabinet, I forget, CCC,
Okay.
but they were not granted those funds.
Why weren't they granted that, Bill?
Well, they put a grant application in, and they just were not granted the funds. They were not selected for the funds.
So,
Do we know why we weren't selected?
Well, they don't give you a reason why, they just tell you you weren't selected.
Nice.
And so they're looking for other sources of funds at this point. So it's kind of like in a state of limbo.
okay. I do have a question on that. Are we able to, is it okay to reapply, or they're looking not to bother?
Matt knows that more closely than I do.
Okay.
Matt speaks with the people that give these grants
Sure.
regularly.
Okay.
So he kind of has a better handle on that than I do.
I, for one, would like to see it stay on and just keep an update.
Sure.
Because it's needed, but anyone else?
I agree, Shirley.
Okay, Ginger agrees. Mike?
Yeah,
you-
that's fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right, thanks, Bill. Item 6, Bad Luck Pond Outlet Bridge.
This is also known more commonly as the Cedar Street Bridge.
Yes.
So I put a bunch of documents in your packet, starting with a schedule. Granted, this was submitted back in September.
Yep.
Nonetheless, it's, and I'll read it out loud for those of us who don't have the hard copy in front of us. Ginger?
Yep.
Advertisement, their anticipated advertisement date is January 6th of 2021. This is for construction. They're looking for bids due on February 1st, an award date of no later than April 30th, which I think is a bit long, but, they won't start construction prior to then anyway.
Right.
Construction begins June 1st. So, we've got some time in the schedule. More recently, I've been working with Freeman Pedersen, who's our engineer. We had them hire a sub to come up with a better estimate than we had originally. We went to our assessor's office. We wanted a more appropriate appraisal of some takings that we have. In your packet, you'll see a colorful map that shows some shaded areas. And that's primarily for 2 reasons: to improve the alignment in that section of Cedar Street, as well as to make use of properties that are owned by others during construction. So every different color you see on this map is a different landowner or a different type of easement. I think there's there's only 3 landowners, to be honest with you, but it looks like there's a lot more. Some of them are permanent easements, some are temporary, some are utility, so there are different kinds of easements with the different owners. So the appraiser, even though I don't have the appraisal yet, originally, I guess for May, the assessor's office came up with an estimate of $1,100 for all the takings. The appraiser, because the warrant was closing Tuesday, gave us a verbal total number of $6,000, which is a high number. He wanted to come in high for the warrant. We expect that's going to go down by the time we get to town meeting and we get the actual appraisal reports in. You can't go the other way. You can't increase the value, so it's better to go a little high at this point.
Okay.
I'm planning on meeting with the landowners after we get the appraisal reports in, so we can have a discussion on, the scope and extent, and at that point, the engineer will come down and also participate in the discussion. In addition to that, you'll see a letter from the engineer. That's basically an amendment to the scope for the appraisal services. There were some extra scope items. There was stuff that they didn't have to do. But all said and done, it's pretty much a wash. It's just, we have to document the changes in the scope. And lastly, in the packet, I do have a 3-page budget report. Granted, it's a couple of months old, but it really hasn't changed too much, so that's a good reflection of where we're at financially. And actually, lastly, we got our approval. Actually, this was just sent to me on October 2nd, but it's MassDOT approval of the design plans.
Oh, good.
So the design's all approved by Mass DOT. We're moving along on that.
Okay, anyone? Questions?
No.
We good? Okay, thanks, Bill. Okay, item 7?
With your permission, Madam Chair,
Yes.
Vice Chair, I'd like to combine 7 and 8. I think we had talked about possibly combining these from a designer perspective, but I've got no progress on it. I've just, between staff being cut and other things going on at the same time, I just haven't had a chance to even work on either of those.
Okay. So we'll keep those on the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Bill on either item?
No.
All right. If not, we will move on to minutes of September 16th, 2020. I don't know why, Bill, but I could not pull these up.
I think I had a bad link. Either I didn't receive them by the time I posted the agenda, or I did it remotely from home, I think. It was, I was doing soil testing.
Okay.
So it was like, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night when I posted this.
That's all right.
So when I click on the date, nothing comes up that has anything to do with the minutes. Is that because you couldn't link it?
It should be working now, Ginger. I did fix it just before the meeting.
So Ginger,
Okay, so
you haven't,
when I click on it, no, it doesn't come up. No.
Click your refresh
No,
arrow.
no minutes.
Click your refresh arrow.
Not today.
What happened with me is it would come up to upcoming meetings. And I tried it several times, and it still did the same thing.
No, I know. Again, right before the meeting, when I was preparing the packets for everybody.
Sure,
And that's the kind of stuff that's time consuming.
Right.
That,
Yeah.
I need help in my office to do
Right.
stuff like that.
Right. We can perhaps hold off till the
Yeah.
next meeting.
That's fine.
And everybody agreeable with that?
Yeah.
We can,
What on the,
Yep.
yeah. Okay? Everybody
Yes.
okay with that? All right,
I will make a point to email them out to everybody,
thank you.
so
Thank you.
if the link's not working, everybody will have it.
Okay, upcoming meetings,
October 21st.
that's us right now. So the next meeting
Okay.
is November 18th, 2020.
Yes,
All right?
and December 16th.
Okay, December 16th. Okay,
Okay. That'll be on the next agenda anyway, right?
yes,
Yes, it is.
yes. Okay,
Okay, so we won't worry about that.
has anyone got anything they'd like to bring up that wasn't anticipated?
No, I don't at the moment.
Okay. Linda? No. Mike? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn at 7:45.
second,
I second it.
third,
Roll call vote.
Mike Fitzpatrick, aye.
Linda Brown, aye.
Ginger?
Yes, Ginger, how, aye.
Shirley Mazinski, aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay safe, and thank you for tuning in, Ginger.
You're welcome, thank you.
Yep.